Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom. I'm the creator of rulingplanets.com, and I want to welcome you to Christopher Renstrom Astrology, and to this week's episode, which is a forecast for the month of March 2024. Before we begin, I would like to share with you a quote from Laozi, who was a philosopher and writer and the founder of Taoism. He writes about the element of water. The element of water is very integral to the zodiac sign of Pisces. We have 3 water signs in astrology: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And one could say that the ultimate water sign is Pisces because of its modern ruler, which is Neptune, named after the Greek god of oceans and seas. This is what Laozi says. Water wends its way gently around every obstacle, avoids heights, seeks to depths, bends with curves, fills and pours, fits into square and circle, into small and great, into springs and rivers, smooths the surfaces of things, accepts all manner of filth, contains gold, extinguishes fire, brings life to plants and trees, softens and moistens the soil, brings benefit to the myriad things, never contending, always lowering, always beneath, all under heaven, supremely soft and gentle. I love that quote for Pisces because what you can hear in those images is the mutability, the changeability of the zodiac sign of Pisces. Pisces is not a cardinal sign like Cancer is, for instance. Cardinal signs are very direction-oriented. If they see something they want, they go after it. Each of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, will go after their objective in different ways. Aries headbutts. Cancer moves in a wide circle, throwing you off its scent until it sneaks up around you and grabs with its claw. Libra invites you to negotiate and to have conversation. And Capricorn just climbs over people in order to get what it wants. The type of signs that follow cardinal signs in modality order are the fixed signs. Those are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Where cardinal signs are kind of unstoppable forces, fixed signs are immovable objects. They say no before yes, and they won't move unless they want to move. And so then we come to the mutable or the changeable signs. Those are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Sandwiched between unstoppable forces and immovable objects are the mutable signs. And these are the ones that look for compromise, they look to accommodate, they try to figure out how to make a situation work. And this is the specific job, the specific function of the mutable signs in astrology. Pisces is a mutable sign, meaning it's changeable. It's not going to be direction-oriented like Cancer. It's not going to be fixed in its ways like a Scorpio, but it's going to, as we often say these days, go with the flow. It streams. It moves like that description of water that I just shared with you from Laozi. It avoids height. It sinks to depth. It can fill a square or a circle. It polishes the surface of things. It can collect filth, and it can evaporate, and it can change its shape. And then after evaporating, it can return to earth again as rain. So these are the beautiful qualities of water. But water in a Piscean sense is changeable. And that's something that I want you to keep in mind as we go into the month of March. What Laozi talks about is the idea of lowering itself. And what he's referencing is that it is the nature of water to go low, to go deep. All right. If you have a leak in a house, the water is going to find the lowest point before it starts seeping out. So water has always been associated with depth. If you go and look out over a lake or even the ocean, you can see the surface of the water. Chances are, if there aren't boats that are flipping through it, is going to reflect the color of the sky. You can maybe even see waves, but you cannot see below the surface. Below the surface is something that's deep and mysterious. And this is why the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, have always been associated with depth, and they've always been associated with the soul. But none of the water signs reaches the profound depths that a Pisces does. The first major planetary aspect that we will encounter at the beginning of March will be on March 4th, and that's when Mercury forms a sextile to the planet Uranus. Mercury is the planet of thought. It's the planet of messages and messaging. So Mercury is all about our day-to-day transactions, usually dealing with business, because the Latin root of the word Mercury is merc, and that is where we get the words merchant, merchandise, and mercantile. So the whole idea of buying and selling is very much wrapped up in the planet Mercury, the transaction of information, exchanging information from here to there. Mercury is most comfortable in the zodiac signs of Gemini and Virgo. This is where Mercury gets its reputation for being very fast, fleet feet, for being very clever, for being very analytical, and very good at solving problems. Mercury is interested in helping you get from here to there. So it really enjoys ephemeral information. It actually is the planet that rules over ephemeral information. Ephemeral information refers to information that has a short shelf life. Here's an example. The alarm goes off in the morning and the radio comes on. It's playing your favorite music. And at some point, it's going to give you a weather report. Okay, that weather report you want to know because you want to know how to dress that day. You get in the car and maybe you get a traffic report. That traffic report you're going to want to know because you're going to want to know what where there are traffic jams on the freeway and how to maybe circumvent these things in order to get to work. You may even want to know stock prices because this is something that you're following. So you want to know when to buy or sell, things along those lines. So ephemeral information is information that's short-lived. Nobody's interested in yesterday's weather report. Nobody's interested in last week's stock tip. The traffic situation a year ago doesn't really pertain much to what's going on with you being able to get to work today. Okay, so Mercury is on the go, and it wants information that it can use immediately to get from here to there. When you put Mercury in a zodiac sign like Pisces, okay, and Pisces is a water sign, and the element of water deals with emotion, creativity, different altered states of consciousness. Water rules over our memory, water rules over our imagination, and water rules over our habits, as well as our fantasies. So here, as you might imagine, Mercury is on murky ground. Okay, Mercury wants to be able to communicate efficiently and very quickly and get on its way. But when it's in an element like Pisces, it sort of gets foggy-headed. It sort of gets vague. It sort of gets very confused. And so Mercury has a tendency to be bewildered and confused in the zodiac sign of Pisces. It's not a sort of mental faculty that Mercury is as adept or comfortable with. The moon is much more comfortable with supporting people in an emotional moment that isn't an easy emotional moment for them, and just sort of being with them and sitting with someone in their heartbreak or their pain. Mercury isn't like that. Mercury gets restless and a little bit impatient if there's a pregnant pause, a long silence, or if someone inexplicably starts to cry. They just don't really know what to do with it. They prefer honest problems with quick and easy solutions. Mercury is very analytical. This is what it likes to do. It likes to break down a problem into its components and sort of like delight over the puzzlement of it and put it together in a different sort of way and come up with the answer and go on to the next idea. But Mercury's powers of analysis aren't really great in the zodiac sign of Pisces. And that's because the watery realm tends to confuse, baffle, and bewilder. Um, Inspiration can be found, though, in all the gobbledygook, courtesy of this Mercury and Uranus sextile. Now, why am I saying that? Uranus has an inventive quality. We're familiar with Uranus as being the planet of revolution and change, but whenever it's in sextile or trine to another planet, it sort of trades in its radical reactions for a more enlightening type of relationship. So when Mercury, which might sort of be like reaching for things and it's lost its way, forms a sextile to Uranus, Uranus has an ability to step out of a situation and to see it from a more detached view. But another quality that Uranus has, which I really like, is it has a wonderful sense of the absurd, of almost the ridiculous in a way. And so, what can happen here is that there can be inspiration in the gobbledygook. In other words, with all this confounding information or ideas that seem like they just don't make sense, Uranus, when it sextiles with Mercury, can take mismatched concepts and get them to dovetail. Uranus, when it's in sextile to Mercury, can look at actions that look like they're counterintuitive at first, but see them in a sort of eccentric or inventive kind of way. And what seems counterintuitive and mismatched all of a sudden seems very avant garde, very sort of ahead of its time. And maybe things that aren't supposed to get along suddenly have a simpatico quality. Of the features of Mercury in Pisces is its stream of consciousness and its love of association, whether it's word association or jumping from one idea to another. Again, Mercury on its own can have difficulty with that, but if it's getting help from a planet like Uranus, it can begin to sort of see the figure in the carpet. It can begin to sort of decipher things that wouldn't normally be interpreted in that particular kind of way. So the March 4th can bring a kind of inventiveness because of the Mercury and Uranus sextile. If that is what's going on mentally with you, all of a sudden you can sort of like see connections where there weren't connections before. You want to act on these before March 8th. In other words, if you're kind of like seeing strategically, okay, this is how we could handle the situation, or this is where we could turn the tables on an opponent, or this is a way out of a corner, or Jackson Pollock, maybe you want to give up this sort of Diego Rivera wannabe painting and start doing splatter techniques over canvas. Look at what that does. You'll become a famous painter. Okay, this kind of inventive reinvention is very strong, but if it results in you solving a problem or progressing from one situation to another, you want to make sure to do this before March 8th. Why? Because on March 8th, Mercury forms a conjunction to Neptune. So, in other words, all of that stuff that was sort of like brilliant and it was going with mind and things like that, Neptune kind of like plunges it down into the bottom of the pool or the bathtub and makes it very soggy minded. Now, for those of you who are psychic in the audience, a Mercury Neptune conjunction is just the thing. You can channel forever. It's wonderfully inspirational in that spiritualist sort of way. And that would certainly be appealing for the water signs. But if you're like Gemini or Virgo, you're going to be sputtering. Your mental quality with a Mercury Neptune conjunction. Think of a cat that's been tossed into a swimming pool. Okay. How comfortable is it with that? But nevertheless, this idea of the sextile is going to be very beneficial for people born under the water and earth signs. So that sextile I was talking about is going to be very beneficial for Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And it's going to be very beneficial for Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. The Mercury ruled signs, Gemini, and Virgo. Virgo, I already said they're going to do okay. Geminis are not going to do so well with this type of thing. And this energy can be a little bit hard to navigate, particularly on March 8th for the air and the fire signs. But on March 9th, we immediately have a Mars and Uranus square. Mars will be in the zodiac sign of Aquarius, and it will be squaring Uranus in the zodiac sign of Taurus. As you can imagine, this is a very combative square. Squares are of the nature of Mars to begin with. Any planet that squares another planet is going to have a sort of combative edge to it. When you have one of those planets being Mars, it's tremendously combative. And then it is squaring Uranus. So it's going to bring out all of Uranus's volatile quality, where Uranus was a more enlightening source of energy when it was forming a sextile to Mercury. Here, Mars in Aquarius, Mars is in a fixed sign. Uranus is in a fixed sign, Taurus. The square will bring out all the hard liner qualities of the fixed signs. In other words, there's going to be a line, it's not drawn in the sand, it's a line drawn in the cement with a barricade. There's going to be like, this is my point of view, that's your point of view. And there is no way that we can reconcile these differences. And there's a tendency when the fixed signs square to be rather absolutist in refusal to budge or to amend. Now, Mars is in the zodiac sign of Aquarius. So this is going to give a lot of muscle to people born under the zodiac sign of Aquarius and to people born under Libra and born under Gemini. In other words, if you're born under these signs and you're involved in an argument or a debate, you're not going to give it up. Even if people are like, hey, you're Gemini, usually you sort of laugh at something or see someone else's point and make a witty remark and you move on. Not when you've got Mars in Aquarius. Okay, so if you are locking horns in any kind of argument or debate, you are not going to stop. The Mars can be really quite fixed in that type of thing. And then if you are on the Uranian side of the square, i.e., if you were born under the zodiac sign of Taurus, you are not going to relent. You're going to feel very much under siege. You're going to feel very much like someone's trying to mess around with the way that you do things. You're not putting up with it. Okay. And you're going to push back and you're going to push back hard. Okay. So with a Mars square Uranus like this is famous for the idea of someone horning in on your turf. This could be a competitor at work, a competitive business, a neighbor who's decided that they've gone and researched the property line and decided that you're beyond the property line or that they have rights to your property. This is horning in on turf type of energy. The planetary combination is famous for infractions, transgressions, and hostile takeovers. Okay, so there's an annexing quality that's going on here. Like, I'm going to take what's yours, or that might be on your side of the fence, but I'm going to now take it. Or maybe you have duties and responsibilities at work, and so has decided, well, I'll be taking over these duties and responsibilities at work. You don't have to mind. I'm going to be in charge of this for now. And you might be like, what are you doing, you little vixen? Or what are you doing, you horrible person, you? Okay, so it's going to bring out a turf war. Now, your first reaction, if you're a Taurus, or even if you're an Earth sign, because some of this can carry on over, would be to make peace. Sort of like, let's not do this and let's find a reasonable way. But you're going to find that if you're being opposed by someone who's horning in on your turf, they're not going to stop. They're not interested in making peace. They're interested in getting what it is that you have. And Mars, when it squares you, this can be like a bird of prey. It can be swooping on in and wanting to get what you have. And if you're feeling that Mars energy, that might be exactly what you're feeling, which is, I want this and I'm not going to let up. Now, if you're the one who's under attack, let's say you're in the Taurus corner here, your way of protecting your interests be like, how am I going to protect my interests? How am I going to guard myself against this kind of Martian attack? And the answer is, curiously enough, bureaucracy. All right. If you're feeling under siege in this square, the answer will be bureaucracy. If you're the person who's on the attack, you can see a victory here. The answer again is going to be bureaucracy. Why would bureaucracy be of any sort of help in a situation like this? It's of help in a situation like this because you combine the elements of air and earth. And when you combine the elements of air and earth, what you get is an enforcement of contracts, leases, rules, and regulations. What air and earth have in common is a love of order, an ordered way of doing things. This is something that delights both air and earth signs. And they have a very high regard to regulations, rules, laws, codes, things like this. And so this square energy is not the energy that's going to want to send you to the rule book. It's going to want to send you going through your emails or those paper warranties in the back of a drawer. Somewhere there is a rule, law, or regulation that will protect your interests. And the sooner you can connect to that and sort of go, aha, and show it to the person who is coming at you in an adversarial way, the sooner you will be able to ward them off. That is always the key to really prevailing under a Mars-Uranus square involving the air and earth signs. And the signs most affected: Aries, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Now, after this great exertion of either willpower, I will not be diverted and search for the prize on the right side of history and to get way, wanting to annex something may also be involved in retrieving something that is rightfully yours or should be yours. That can also fall under the rubric of what I've just described. And then if you're on the other side, which is defending the position, you may be so exhausted, stressed out, and haggard by the entire thing that you just want to curl up somewhere and nap. This is something that will be supported by the new moon in Pisces, which takes place on March 10th. This new moon in Pisces, all new moons are dark moons. You cannot see the moon in the nighttime sky. And they're famously associated to when you plant seeds. Many people use them in rituals for planting an intention or beginning an intention. With a new moon in Pisces, it's really going to be a period of time that promises to soothe frazzled nerves and to restore your peace of mind. Now, Pisces people often feel a need to retreat from the world in order to restore their psychic equilibrium. Okay, and this is something that's going to speak very much to all the water signs, whether you're Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. This new moon on March 10th will be a time when you're just like, I need time away. I need time by myself. And you could even be involved in a wonderful time in a relationship. You're getting to know someone, you're on fire romantically or whatever, and you'll be like, I need some time away. I need some time by myself. And your new relationship might be like, wait, what do you mean? We're seeing each other every day. And you're like, no, I need time by myself. I've exerted a great deal of psychic energy recently, and I need some time by myself. If you're involved in troubled situations or stressful situations, this is where you're seeking some kind of sanctuary, whether that's disappearing into a bubble bath and just letting yourself soak, or going to a day spa, or maybe going to retreat for a number of weeks, just where you are quiet and silent and where you can sort of empty out. This is something that often happens under the influence of a new moon in Pisces. It's a replenishing of one's psyche. I kind of want you to think of a reservoir of water. If it doesn't replenish its reserves after a good solid rain, for instance, it will run dry. And if you're born under a water sign, and this is really going to impact the water signs, it's going to be this feeling that I'm running on empty and I can't continue running on empty. I need to retreat. I need to restore my psychic resources. And so as a result, the new moon in Pisces on March 10th will bring about a more centered you, given time, of course, to retreat and to reflect, or maybe just veg out. You'll be able to assess situations more clearly and accurately when you return. You know this, and it might be a good idea to tell people in your life this so that they don't wonder where you've gone or what's up. But it's this idea of like, I need to go into a shutdown in order to restore and replenish, and then I can return. So this is going to be very beneficial for the water signs, as I said, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And it's also going to be a nice outlet for people born under Taurus and Capricorn, particularly Taurus because of what you just went through with that fracas of the Mars-Uranus square. Interestingly, the sign that's going to have a hard time with this is Virgo. Now you might say, well, Virgo's an earth sign and it sextiles water, and why wouldn't that be a good thing? Whenever the sun is traveling through a zodiac sign that's opposite you, i.e., it's opposite the sign that you were born under, there can be a sort of a drop in your energy. And Virgos can experience a drop in their energy in this period of time when the sun is in Pisces. And that can get them a little bit more depressed or heavy in the way that they are, or it can result in them becoming more restless and more nervous. So that new moon in Pisces, although theoretically a Virgo would love the idea of, a retreat or some time away, it's not going to feel like that's an option or like that is available. If anything, Virgos have a tendency to be like, I need more coffee and caffeine, like my mind is starting to get very sleepy and very vague and very blurry. And so I'm going to want to up my caffeine so I can focus. So that might be the way that Virgos react with this new moon in Pisces. A little coffee's okay, but too much makes you to whatever Virgo. So watch that you don't go overboard with that. March 11th, Venus enters the zodiac sign of Pisces. And on March 17th, you have the sun forming a conjunction to Neptune, the modern ruler in Pisces. So there is a lot of water energy that's coursing through everyone's horoscopes during this period of time. This is terrific if you're a water sign. It's terrific if you're an earth sign other than Virgo. If you are born under Gemini or Libra, you're going to be having a hard time with this. And then if you're born under Aries and Leo, you're going to be having a bit of a hard time with this as well. Air and fire signs are going to be struggling to be alert, to stay on top of the situation, to maintain their focus. And this is something that they're going to be very much experiencing. Now, Venus entering the zodiac sign of Pisces is a big deal because Venus is exalted in the zodiac sign of Pisces. That means she's the most celebrated. She's the most Venusian. And when you remembered your Greek mythology, Venus emerges from a conch shell in the Mediterranean Ocean, and the zephyr breezes, blow her towards the shore where she steps off the shell and she becomes a marvelous goddess. Look at Sandro Botticelli's famous painting, Birth of Venus, and you will see her with hair blowing in the wind and some of the hair sort of strategically put over her private parts so as to show a sort of modesty as she's stepping off the conch shell onto the island and begins her reign as the goddess of love and beauty. And so Venus is said to be the most resplendent, the most attractive when she's in the zodiac sign of Pisces. And as you can imagine, anything that's Venusian is going to do very well right now. So Venus, she's love, she's beauty. Venus was famously associated to music and music making. So it's Venus who rules the voice. Taurus is ruled by Venus. You have many Taurians who are famous vocalists from Ella Fitzgerald to Adele. And Venus is the ruler of Libra. Many Librans who are associated to music, whether it's Bono from U2, Bruce Springsteen, or John Lennon. So Venus was associated to singing, and she was also associated to music playing. Venus in Pisces is connected to a great creativity. So for people who are involved in the creative arts, this is an extraordinary and very powerful time. Now, Venus in Pisces also has a little bit of a reputation of being the martyr, being the sacrificial victim, the person who, wears their heart on their sleeve and is easily hurt. What I have found is if you've got Venus in Pisces in your chart, for instance, you may have a tendency to attract into your life people who've gone through hard times, emotional shipwrecks, people with heavy psychic wounding, people carrying around a lot of personal psychological baggage. These people may treat you, if you've got Venus and Pisces in your chart, very powerful, they may treat you as the port in the storm because they have a feeling that you get it. You know what it's like to be hurt. You know what it's like to have been victimized. And so they feel like you get it. This kind of reputation of Venus and Pisces is, I want to suffer. That's not really altogether true. It's more like if you have Venus and Pisces very strong in your chart, you attract into your life people who have suffered. Pisces is a sign that really understands suffering, something that other signs get very uncomfortable with. Even in our current society, we are very uncomfortable with pain and suffering and victimization. We like to say that someone's caused their own victimization through bad judgment and thoughtless mistakes. That's not true. People suffer and get hurt in life. Pisces has an understanding of that. Pisces gets what that is about. Pisces will never tell you to get over yourself. Pisces will sit with you in your heartache. And if you want to talk about it, great. And if you don't, that's all right too. Okay, so there's a deep compassion to Pisces, and certainly a very deep compassion to Venus in Pisces. But Venus in Pisces also has her bacchanalia side, where it's like, where's the party? And so Venus in Pisces can be very like, I have so much romantic attention, prospects, and possibilities. I don't know where to begin. Okay, so there can be that side to Venus in Pisces as well. Venus in the Jupiter ruled signs is always a party girl. Venus in Pisces loves a good time. Venus in Pisces loves, a good party, a good fest, and loves a lot of food and wine and drink and all these sorts of things that get people into the mood to dance and be erotic. Okay, so these are the things that are going to be connected to Venus in Pisces. Then we have the Sun, which is in Neptune, and that really bumps up all of the watery flavor. So this can actually be a time of creativity and of course, a time of great spirituality. But this can also be a time when you're dragging yourself home at 6 in the morning because you clubbed all weekend or all week or something along those lines. So this is where Pisces kind of like opens up those impulses. And so if that's what's going on in your life, it makes perfect sense. This kind of ecstatic bacchanalia time, this time of revelry, that you're having is great until you hit March 20th. Two things happen on March 20th. The first is Venus falls under the beams of Saturn. And if anyone is going to pull the plug on the party, it's going to be Saturn. Okay, so Saturn is like, enough of this revelry, enough of this abandon, enough of this fun and games. I'm putting away all the things that are making you be bacchanaliac. Saturn is conjunct Venus, and that's the end of the party. That's the end of the fun. It's time to get serious and get back to work now. If you're enjoying a romance, this might be a time where the other person is called away, or you have to return to your obligations, or you have to return to your own specific relationships. The affair is over. Saturn next to Venus puts an end to all of this revelry, and now it's going to be very sobering, and now it's back to work. And so you may feel very much like, oh, all the fun's left, and and that's Saturn. That's Saturn just being Saturn. Party's over, and that's done with. This is conjunction with the Sun entering the zodiac sign of Aries, which is also on March 20th. And the Sun is exalted in the zodiac sign of Aries, meaning most solar. And the Sun in Aries is very much about beginnings and very much about starting on something like a quest or a mission or an endeavor or a project. So this Sun in Aries is going to be a boost of adrenaline. It's going to be a boost of energy, and it's really going to benefit, obviously, Aries, but it's also going to benefit Gemini, Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. All of a sudden, you're going to feel that vim and vigor, that energy that was missing before. Before, you might have felt like you were meandering or lost or kind of depressed or melancholic. And now you're going to feel very like all of a sudden, like your phone is picking up the signal again, and you're full bars, and you're up and going, and you're very alert. And this is going to be really terrific. And you're going to feel very driven, and you're going to feel very focused. And if you're born under Aries, you get to enjoy this. This is like a tremendous boost to you, and you get to enjoy it for 2 days. Now, and I know you might be like, 2 days? Why do I only get 2 days? The reason, Aries, you only get 2 days is because on March 22nd, Mars enters the zodiac sign of Pisces. Okay, so that brings that kind of watery feeling again. And Mars in Pisces is an interesting placement. It very much pursues what it wants, but there's also feeling when Mars is in Pisces that you go after what you want, but that when you get it, all of a sudden it's not what you wanted anymore, or it doesn't really live up to what that initial expectation or hope or drive was all about. And so that's something that I've seen show up a lot with Mars and Pisces. Also, if you're Aries, your ruling planet Mars in Pisces, it can give you the feeling that you're running up a slippery slope, that you can't really get your footing, you can't really get your momentum, you're slipping and falling because it's a watery Mars. It's not holding its focus, it's not holding its force. And so that's something that if you're born under Aries, you're going to have to contend with. There are still things to be done, but you can't do it in a straightforward sort of way. You're going to have to get used to the idea that for every 3 steps forward, there's going to be 2 steps back, or there's going to be things not collating or coming together the way that you want them to. It's kind of like trying to hold water in your palm. The water goes through your fingers. You can either do this and be like, I'm over it, or you can find a way to work with that energy. So it's a little bit trying to keep the focus in a world that's going to feel a bit wobbly or not really conducive towards the quick actions that you were led to believe you could take, or even reaping the quick results that you were led to believe were able. There will be things that confuse and that bewilder and that boggle. Now, on March 24th, Venus forms a sextile to Jupiter in the sky. This is wonderful. I love sextiles because they enable you to get what you want, either because the circumstances become conducive or because someone's going to help you to get what you want. Someone helping you to get what you want is pretty much linked up with the idea of a sextile. So when Venus and Jupiter form their sextile on March 24th, Venus is exalted in Pisces, Jupiter is in Taurus. Venus in Pisces is ruled by Jupiter because Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Pisces has 2 planetary rulers, Jupiter and Neptune. Neptune is the modern ruler. Jupiter is the traditional ruler. So Jupiter rules Pisces. Venus is in Pisces. Jupiter rules Pisces. Jupiter is also in Taurus, and Venus rules Taurus. This creates what we call a mutual reception. And mutual receptions are really wonderful. It doesn't mix and blend the planets in the way that a conjunction will. And it doesn't get the planets to, one backs up the other one like a trine will. What a sextile does is that it gets the planets to consciously work with one another, and they will work with one another to their mutual benefit. Hence the phrase mutual reception. So whatever Venus is doing to aid and abet Jupiter, and whatever Jupiter is doing to help out Venus is going to benefit both of them mutually. It's kind of like, imagine Venus is a really talented songwriter, but she needs to meet a star. And Jupiter is best friends with the star's best friend. And Jupiter says, I can make that introduction. You don't just make the introduction to anyone. You want to make the introduction if the person you're introducing is really talented. So Venus is the talented songwriter. Jupiter's like, I know somebody who knows someone. They make the introduction. The star is like, oh my goodness, you're the best songwriter ever. I want to work with you forever. And that shows Jupiter off. Venus gets what she wants. She gets the connection. But at the same time, Jupiter is the one who found the talent. And the person says to Jupiter, my goodness, how did you know this person? Are there any more people that you know like this? This is an example of 2 benefics working in mutual reception. They are working to a mutual benefit, and they're also showing off one another in a flattering light. This is going to benefit, as I said, all water and earth signs. So Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces will benefit, as well as Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. But I would also like to add to that list Libra and Sagittarius, if and only if you are willing to improvise. Very quickly, the sextile energies involve water and earth, so that should sort of be like, okay, what's that got to do with air and fire? Nothing. Okay, that's why they're not benefiting from it. But Venus rules Libra, which is an air sign. Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. Even though they're not in your element, they're still forming this sextile. So if you can wrap your mind around doing something differently, or if an offer or an opportunity comes up that's not what you expected, but you can sort of play with how it could work, this can be tremendously beneficial for Libras and Sagittarians out there. So this is how you can turn a sextile, which technically doesn't have anything to do with you, when you look at the astrological makeup of the elements and signs, but through rulership, this is where you can turn that to your advantage, but you have to be willing to improvise. And finally, we get to the lunar eclipse, which is taking place on March 25th. Lunar eclipses are eclipses in which the moon in the nighttime sky is eclipsed. A solar eclipse, especially if it's a daytime solar eclipse and you can see it, is very dramatic because the moon moves in front of the sun and it blocks its light, and all of a sudden it's night in the middle of the day. Okay, this is what solar eclipses are famous for. At nighttime, it's a full moon. And what's happening is that the Earth is coming between the sun and the moon. When the sun and the moon are opposite one another, the moon is full. That's why if you're born under Pisces and the moon is in Virgo, the moon was full at the time that you were born. What happens in a lunar eclipse is that the Earth moves between the sun and the moon and casts its shadow on the moon. So what was a full moon suddenly is dark. Both of these were regarded in ancient civilizations as portents and frightening times because all of a sudden you're seeing the light in the sky go dark, whether it's the light of the sky in day during a solar eclipse or the light at night goes dark. So eclipses were basically understood as lights out in heaven. And so they could be seen as frightening or treacherous times. Nowadays, they still sort of carry that energy with them, but astrologers have a tendency to see them more as direction changers in an astrological chart. Now, whenever you have a lunar eclipse that's going on in the sky, you want to ask yourself a very simple question, which is, am I on shaky ground? All right. Am I on shaky ground in a business venture? Am I on shaky ground in a relationship? Am I on shaky ground with a health matter? If you are on shaky ground, the tendency under a lunar eclipse is for it to unravel and to fall apart. All right. Anything that's on a weak footing tends to fall apart. So this is why lunar eclipses were seen as kind of like frightening. Solar eclipses would often symbolize the overthrow of a head of state, like a king or an emperor. Beware the Ides of March, if you remember that warning to Julius Caesar, that came right before a solar eclipse in which Caesar was assassinated in the Senate. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it happened once a long time ago in Rome, and Caesar was on the wrong side of that. So solar eclipses were always associated to the deadly overthrow of heads of state. Lunar eclipses dealt with the body politic. So they dealt with the people of a kingdom, the people of a republic, the people of an empire. And so lunar eclipses had a tendency to be more connected to things like famines or to pestilences or to troubles in the economy or troubles with the people. The people were upset with their rulers and now they're going to pick up pitchforks and storm the Bastille. Something along those lines would be connected to a lunar eclipse. Something is wrong with the body politic. Let's bring it back to our lives, all right? Let's bring it back to down to earth, terra firma parts of our lives. I want you to think back to 6 months before. And really, I want you to think back to our last round of eclipses. So I want you to focus on the dates October 14th and October 28th. Particularly if you are a cardinal sign, if you were born under Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Even more specifically, Aries and Libra. Where were you on these days? Okay, go and check your phone or journal or diary or log or something along those lines. If you had begun a venture at that time, maybe it was a business, maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a project, maybe you were invading another country. Okay, if you began something at that time and Right now, you're experiencing a loss of energy, a loss of force. You're on weak ground. It's not coming together in the way that you wanted it to. The lunar eclipse on March 25th strongly suggests ditching it. And this is for people like, let's say, I'm waiting for this person to call back. I know that we're meant to be together. Well, if it's been 6 months and the person hasn't called back, guess what? They're not calling. So this actually allows you to say, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. Let's say you're pouring money into a business. Let's say you're pouring money into a house repair and it's not getting anywhere. This might be the time to cut your losses with the business, or this might be a time to change contractors with a house. So this lunar eclipse energy, if it's on weak footing, is really about letting it go and cutting your losses and moving on, because to continue in this vein is only going to cost you more and more and more. Let's say you began something 6 months ago. You began a relationship. You began a business endeavor, a remodel. And, it's kind of slow at the start, but it's actually been picking up momentum. And it's actually showing signs of progress. This is the time to invest more energy in it. This is just time to say, okay, I'm going to take this project out of the training. I'm going to take the training wheels off this project and I'm going to get this project onto a proper bike and riding forward. This would be a signal to invest more energy or finances or more effort in what you're doing. You're ready to build on or to take the next step. So this is what lunar eclipses do. They kind of get you to touch base with something along these lines. Let's say you began a new health regimen and, it took a while for maybe your body to adjust or your lifestyle to adjust or something like that. But it's at a point right now where it's like, okay, I really feel like this is working. You want to increase what you're doing. Okay, this is a sign to go ahead and do that. And, I mentioned that it's a challenging time for Aries and Libra because this is where the lights are disappearing, but it could also be a very invigorating time as well. But I want you to use the criterion that I just shared with you. Are you on iffy ground? Is it falling apart? If it is, cut your losses. Are you starting something that you weren't sure was going to work, but now it looks like it's gaining momentum? Reinvest or put more energy into what you're doing. This is something to keep in mind, and I want you to judge for yourself as we go into this lunar eclipse. And if you have to let it go, let it go. And of course, if you're getting promising signs, this is definitely the time to invest more energy in what you're doing. I hope you enjoyed your March forecast for 2024, and I will see you next time on Christopher Renstrom Astrology.